Life can be strange at times, waking up one morning and nothing goes right, to the day where everything falls into place. Is it luck, fate, or just a mere coincidence? Whatever the outcome, the 5 incidents highlighted in this video are so mysteriously interlinked, they seem like more than just a coincidence. As always, sit back and enjoy. Deus Ex and the World Trade Center. The original Deus Ex, a popularized science fiction computer game, shows a very interesting yet chilling coincidence. Upon selecting missions set in New York, if you look across at the city skyline, the World Trade Center, known as the Twin Towers, are conspicuously absent. At the time, the game developers revealed the reason for their exclusion was something to do with data memory constraints. So in the game's fictional campaign, the towers were declared destroyed by a terrorist group. But what is chilling is that Deus Ex was released in 2000, a year before the Twin Towers were destroyed by a real terrorist group in the atrocious 9/11 attacks. Now, I have no idea what a game company would have to do with the 9/11 terrorist attacks, and by no means I'm suggesting they had any inside knowledge, but it's a very eerie coincidence. Morgan Robertson and the Titanic. Morgan Robertson was an early 20th century novelist who wrote a work of fiction describing the maiden voyage of a transatlantic luxury liner that was thought to be unsinkable. Ironically, it strikes an iceberg and sinks with much loss of life. But this is where it gets strange, and you may know this if you've watched our in-depth Titanic documentary. Robertson's work was called Futility and was written in 1898. 14 years later, in 1912, the ill-fated luxury liner RMS Titanic, a ship that was universally lauded as unsinkable, sank on a maiden voyage after hitting an iceberg with significant loss of life. This channel has in fact described many points and facts surrounding the White Star Line's doomed vessel. But here are a couple of disturbing similarities between the book and the real-life event. The fictional ship sank in the month of April, the same month that Titanic sank. 3,000 passengers lost their lives, whereas Titanic lost 2,207. However, in another incredible coincidence, the name of the fictional ship was added to its secondary title, The Wreck of the Titan. What are the chances of that? When Titanic sank, and the similarities between Robertson's book were noted, he was described as a clairvoyant. However, he dismissed such claims, and believed the similarities between real life and fiction were due to his extensive knowledge of shipbuilding and his maritime experience. Abraham Lincoln and John F. Kennedy. 2 presidents of the United States of America, separated by at least 100 years. But there are so many, possibly too many, comparisons between the 2 men known to date. We could probably commit an entire video to this particular subject. Lincoln was elected to American Congress in 1846. Kennedy was also elected to Congress 100 years later, in 1946. Both becoming presidents, wars were thrust upon both men almost immediately. For Lincoln, it was the American Civil War, a bloody conflict over the controversy of slavery in the US, which tore apart the north and south of the country, starting in 1861 and lasting for 4 years. For Kennedy, it was the Bay of Pigs, a failed military operation which was to invade Cuba in 1961, again 100 years apart. Of course, days and months are not similar, but the comparison of years ring true. Both men were sadly assassinated during their time in office, both from gunshots to the head, and it's to be noted that Lincoln and Kennedy were sat with their wives when tragedy struck. Lincoln was killed on April 14th, 1865 by John Booth, an American actor strongly opposed to the ending of slavery in the United States, at the presidential box at Ford's Theatre in Washington, D.C. Kennedy was shot and killed on November 22nd, 1963, by Lee Harvey Oswald, a former US Marine, in a luxurious Lincoln automobile made by Ford Motors. There are many more coincidences between John F. Kennedy and Abraham Lincoln that give some serious food for thought. The Curse of Tamburlaine and the Russians. You've probably never heard of an Asian warlord named Tamburlaine, but his curse, known as the Timur's Curse, is a legend that has captivated many people across the world. Known as Timur, he was one of the most ruthless and cunning invaders the 14th century had ever seen, and his main purpose was to rebuild the Mongolian Empire, once ruled by the infamous Genghis Khan. Timur's empire started from modern-day southeastern Turkey and covered Iran, Kuwait, Iraq, Syria, and passing through Central Asia to include Afghanistan, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Pakistan, India, and Russia. At the age of 68, Timur succumbed to ill health and harsh winters and died whilst out on his latest conquest. His tomb was located in Uzbekistan and was exhumed in 1941. It was reported that there were 2 inscriptions found on it. One read, "When I rise from the dead, the world shall tremble," and the other translated to say, "Whoever disrupts my tomb will unleash an invader more terrible than I." It was Joseph Stalin that ordered the exhumation of Timur's tomb in 1941, but it was actually opened by 2 men. Both men were warned by historians at the time and a Muslim clergy about the inscription warning on the tomb, and that the curse would take effect within 3 days of the tomb being opened, and the wrath will befall the land of those who opened it. The advice was ignored. 2 days after the tomb was opened, the remains of Timur were sent to Moscow. At the time, Nazi Germany, under the command of Adolf Hitler, invaded Russia, followed by the Soviet Union on the 22nd of June 1941. The invasion came without any formal declaration of war, and Hitler named it as Operation Barbarossa. After numerous defeats at the hands of the Nazis, Joseph Stalin started to blame the curse and ordered that the remains of Timur be returned to his tomb with full Islamic burial rites. This was finalised on the 20th of December 1942, and Timurlen's remains were returned to his tomb. Shortly after, Nazi Germany forces surrendered after the Soviets won the Battle of Stalingrad, which to date remains one of the bloodiest battles of the Second World War. In a final twist on this story, it was reported that the aircraft that was in charge of carrying Timurlen's remains made a detour and flew over Stalingrad on its way to its destination. Coincidence or curse? What do you think? Wrong place, wrong time. To witness a terrorist attack, or any attack, must be one of the most harrowing things a human being will endure. But to witness 3 major terrorist attacks in the space of 7 years is surely more than just a coincidence. Well, for one unfortunate couple from Birmingham in England, that is exactly what happened to them, and they thank their lucky stars that they are still here to tell the tale. Jason and Jenny Cares Lawrence loved to travel, and on September the 11th, 2001, they were in New York when terrorists flew into the World Trade Centers. If this wasn't bad enough, just 4 years later, in July 2005, during a trip to London, they found themselves caught up in a series of suicide attacks on the tube trains, and a bus which killed 52 civilians, and is now known as the 7/7 bombings. Then in 2008, Jenny and Jason set out again, this time to Mumbai, India, when on November the 26th, a gunman from the Pakistani terrorist group attacked several landmark buildings in the city, killing 164 people. After this attack, the couple revealed to the press their feelings about what they witnessed and the unfortunate events that seemed to have followed them on their vacations. It's hard to know whether it's bad luck, coincidence, or whether there is some other force they carry around with them. What's your thoughts? So that's 5 insane coincidences throughout history. I hope you've enjoyed, and I'd like to do a couple more videos like this because there are so many coincidences. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.